I remember when the government announced Section 25 and the amendments thereof, the new Expropriation Without Compensation Bill that was passed, which isn't yet an amendment to the Constitution, but seeks to clarify the Constitution in some way, shape, or form. And yes, this will all head to the Constitutional Court, and eventually it will be tested against the language of the Constitution. But I remember when all of these things were enacted, when I warned that this was going to be used by the government to take land from people and basically do it for any and all reasons, I was told that that's absolutely not what this bill allows for. That the government has no interest in doing that, and that this bill is nothing more than just any other country in the world having a similar type of legislation that allows for the government to lay claim to land if it is deemed in the public interest. What they fail to realize is that almost all other governments in the world only really exercise that right in the direst of circumstances, and most of the time, most governments throughout the world will pay for land. It's only really in extreme circumstances, say, for example, during war, that a government may say, look, we need this land and we can't go through the whole purchase nonsense. We're just taking this. And oftentimes afterwards, they will actually reimburse the people who lost the land or whatever the case may be. But we finally have that case. The government expropriated a 30 million rand property without any compensation. Now, all of this is around a 34-hectare property called Portion 406 of the farm Driefontein without compensation. It's the Ekurhuleni government that took the farm. The case tests the limits of Section 25 in the Constitution as the city government refuses to pay any compensation for the land. And I want you to understand, when they say that they refuse, just listen to the arguments that the government makes here in terms of why they believe they don't have to pay this. And then you'll see very quickly how this logic is incredibly ass backwards. In the Driefontein case, the city said it believes its offer of nil compensation is just and equitable, and was arrived at after shown that the equitable balance favors the interest of the public, based on a substantive consideration of social justice and the lived experiences of those who are landless and subjected to inhuman living conditions in informal settlements. It should be mentioned, right, that if you take all of those words, and they're all words, they form sentences, but they amount to meaning nothing. They are effectively saying, we determined that we want this land for no other reason but the fact that we determined it, and we decided we're not going to pay you for that. You see, because none of this is actually measurable. None of this can actually be applied. There's no standard that can be drawn from this particular case. We can't look at, so the government of Ekurhuleni has the following principles that it will apply to ceasing land. Because there are no principles. The principles are effectively, we decided that this would be good for us, and we took it. It should be mentioned that the company that actually held the land was trying to get development rights on the land. They wanted to start developing the land. They took it and they said, well, there's no financial loss as a result of the expropriation. And the reason they say that the owner of the property suffered no substantial loss or financial loss is because it was held for speculative purposes only, which doesn't actually mean anything, because speculative purposes is actually a super important part of property ownership. You see, because cities and areas sort of move and migrate and build in very distinct patterns. And what oftentimes will happen is, if people know that the city is sort of expanding towards a certain part, they'll buy up property so that when the city reaches that area, they can start to develop it. And it's almost never just so they can sell the land again. It's mostly developers that are buying ahead of time as a sort of hedge. So once the development reaches that area, they can start building, and now they have property in the areas of wherever the city might be. If you remove that, and Sakeliga actually does warn against this, right? So Sakeliga says the following: the state's emerging modus operandi can be broadly summarized as follows. And they say this is what this case actually means. First, a state entity identifies land, the expropriation of which could somehow be claimed as being in the public interest. Based on this alleged public interest, the state entity then denies that any compensation is payable and unilaterally takes possession of the property. With ownership transferred, the state entity then refuses to engage further the former owners, on whom now rests the onus to challenge the compensation decision with years of litigation, millions in legal fees, and unwanted public exposure. Now, of course, this is all in interest of the government, because when the government goes to court, it's just spending taxpayer money. It's not spending its own money. These businesses will have to spend their own money to challenge this in court, and they have been. This has been in court since 2019. This is another part of the case. The owners are saying that since the land was expropriated in 2019, the new bill does not apply, and therefore we should go back to the bill of 1975. And under that bill, what the government did here is unconstitutional and illegal. The government is arguing that actually the bill of 1975 is unconstitutional and therefore should have no bearing on the case. What Sakeliga is saying is, if this case goes through, and if the courts actually side with the government, this is only the beginning. From here, government will start to take property left, right, and center. Every single government municipality in this country, ANC municipality, will start to expropriate land because the courts have now sided with the government and said the government has a right to expropriate land. Now think about the corrupt individuals within our government. Think about the corruption within the ANC. How many of these corrupt individuals will now start taking land purely because they have friends that want that land so that they can sell it again to other people? We're going to see this en masse, and it's going to happen. And the reason we won't be able to stop it is because most of these developers, most of the people that own these properties, won't have the millions of rands that would be required to actually sue the government. Moreover, this will almost certainly invite sanctions, not just from America, but now from Europe as well. Because guess what? For a country to be part of the International Trade Union or Trade Organization, you have to have private property protected by law. Now, the trade union or the trade organization did make some concessions for the Chinese, but that's because China was really big and they offered a lot of money. South Africa doesn't have that money to offer. And so in South Africa's case, we will be cut off from free trade from Europe, from America, from a lot of places in the world. Not only that, but even countries like China, countries like India will look at South Africa and go, wait a second, how could we get our people to invest in your country? How could we get businesses to invest in your country if you can just take the land, if you can just take the property, if you can just lay claim to what we've built and say, well, this is in the public interest for us to take. So, of course, this is going to have incredible ramifications for the rest of South Africa if this is allowed to stand. And Sakeliga needs to do everything in their power to stop this. These guys need to fight the state. It is time that we understand that this government, the ANC, is an enemy of the people. The government has declared itself a rogue in and of itself, and therefore should be resisted at every single turn by law-abiding and honest South Africans that want a good and honest future for our children and for our nation. This government cannot be allowed to stand. This is as simple as it gets. I'm not arguing for war. I'm not arguing for armed revolution. I'm merely saying resist them with everything you've got, whatever you have in your legal framework that allows you to give them less tax money, to get away with as much as you can legally. Do that. Make sure that you don't give them anything more than what they absolutely must get from you. And then resist. Business needs to start resisting this. We need business to get in on this. It can no longer just be ordinary South Africans that go, hey, this is insane. And then big business continuously sides with the ANC. You've made your money. You've made enough. I think there's way too many of you that have made way too much money suckling at the teeth of this government. It's time that you guys grew a spine. It's time that you discovered your morality and your sense of principles and your sense of purpose. It's time that you start resisting the evil that is this government. Ladies and gentlemen, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment if you like what I do and you think more people should see what I have to offer and the message that I bring, because this is an important message. It matters. What we do here is of the utmost importance. If you want to support the mission that I have here, if you want to support this channel, simply hit the link in the description down below to become a patron, or hit the join button right below this video to become a YouTube member. Massive shout out and thank you to everyone that already supports this channel. Your support truly means a lot to me. As always, be good to each other, be kind to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. May the Lord bless you. Peace.